So thanks for the opportunity to share this, the project we have done on vaccine safety with you today. Let me start by saying that all these studies have been done together with several university and institutes from the UK and several professionals from the UK, and that were all separated from the Oxford vaccine group. As a background, at the beginning of the vaccine campaign, HDR UK is giving us some funding to examine uptake, effectiveness, and safety of the COVID-19 vaccine. So this study has been possible thanks to this funding. And since when clinical trials are done, they do have a small sample size, and some of the very rare adverse events, so that will happen in less than one person out of 100,000 vaccinated person could not be detected. It's really important to keep monitoring safety after the vaccine has been administered to the real world. And that happened for all vaccine and for all drugs, so that's perfectly normal. So in this study, we help monitoring this, the possibility of a specific adverse event that could happen after the vaccine. We particularly focus on blood clots and bleeding disorder, and that was the main interest of our first study. And as you remember, there were a lot of media attention on these events, and which have also led to the restriction of the use of AstraZeneca that has not been administered to those younger than 30 years old. And for the second study, instead, we focus on neurological disorder, since also there were some case reports suggesting a possible association between some neurological events and the AstraZeneca vaccine. So our main question was if there was an association between some adverse event and the first dose of either AstraZeneca or Pfizer vaccine, and also if the same adverse event could have been associated with a COVID-19 infection. We got data for people vaccinated in all England, and we knew if these people were vaccinated with 1 or 2 doses and what type of vaccine they got. Also, we knew if those people had had a positive test anytime during the period of observation, so that could have been before or after vaccination. And we also looked if those people were admitted to the hospital for the event of interest at any time, so not just after the vaccination, but at any time, or they died for the event of interest. And this data are coming from the NHS Digital and the ONS. We also involved the public in this study by, before conducting the study, we consulted some representative of the patients to ask them what were the important questions they have got. And that really helped us to choose which adverse event we wanted to investigate it first. And after the study was concluded, we reviewed the finding with the representative of the public, and we asked their help to develop a lay summary and an infographic so the result could be shared with the general public in the most clear way possible, so they could be easy understood by the public. We also had meeting with the media to make sure that the result was well shared by the media in a clear and correct way. And we also inform government of the result we have got. So let me share with you the result. This is the result from the first study, which looked at risk of blood clots. So the data we got was until the 24th of April, from the 8th of December when the vaccine campaign started. And we had data for about 29 million people in England who had a first dose of either AstraZeneca or Pfizer vaccine. We didn't have at that time a Moderna vaccine, since it started to be administered in the UK in the beginning of April, so we didn't have much data on that and on the second dose. And we compare the hospital admission that occur in the 28 days after vaccination or after a COVID positive test with the hospital admission for the same outcome that could have happened in a period that was not related with the vaccine. And to do that, when we did that, we found that there was a slight increase of blood clot after both vaccine, so both AstraZeneca and Pfizer, but that the risk of blood clots was much higher after in the 28 days after a COVID positive test. We did a similar study for looking at when investigating the neurological complication. We had data until the 31st of May, so we had a bigger population. We got about 32 million people vaccinated with a first dose of AstraZeneca or Pfizer, and also they could have had a positive test. Still, we did enough data to look at a second dose or at Moderna vaccine. We did a similar, the study was similar, and we found that there were some neurological complications associated with both Oxford and Pfizer vaccine, but again, those associated with a COVID infection were more, and the risk of those was much higher when associated to COVID infection. So in summary, we found that the AstraZeneca vaccine was associated with some rare disorder, which were thrombocytopenia, which means low platelets, and then venous thromboembolism, that is a blood clot in a vein, CVST, that is a blood clot in a brain venous synosis, and this Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a neurological complication that is a damage to the nerve located outside of the brain. Also, Pfizer vaccine was associated with ischemic stroke and hemorrhagic stroke, we found. But also we found that COVID-19 infection was associated with those complications I've listed here and other that we have investigated. And the risk was much higher after a COVID-19 infection. So for instance, when we look at Guillain-Barré syndrome, we see that if we had 10 million people and we vaccinated them with AstraZeneca, we would expect 38 extra cases compared to what we would normally expect if these people were not vaccinated. But if these 10 million people had been tested positive to SARS-CoV-2, then the number of extra cases was 145 compared to if those people were normal, so not infected. So that's what I mean when I say the risk is higher. So some consideration we could have from this result is that there could be some increased risk of adverse event in the 28-day post-vaccine, and these risks are rare, and complication after vaccination happen in general for many vaccines. And but it's important to monitor them so that we can inform clinical decision making and research management. Importantly, the risk from COVID-19 infection was found to be substantially higher. And it's important to remember that also this vaccine has been found to be effective to reduce the risk of severe COVID, so some COVID that will lead to hospital admission or death. At the moment, we are investigating cardiovascular outcomes, so myocarditis, pericarditis, and arrhythmia, and we are also extending this study that I've shown you to the second dose to see whether there is an increased risk after a second dose or not. So I finished thanking HDR UK, Public Health England and Scotland and the NHS for the data, and also the wider team of researchers that made these studies possible. And thank you.